Alright, so let's deep dive into the second step. Technically, this step actually consists of 4 sub-steps. The first one is to define which kind of data you need to answer your key question. As you already defined the key question to be as specific as possible, this is a lot easier than starting from a more general business challenge. But I'll also show you a technique on how to further reduce the data options on the next slides. Next sub-step is actually getting the data. So you usually have 2 options here. Either you can pull it directly from tools, databases, accounts, and so on, or you speak to someone who can provide it to you. So peers, other departments, your client, and so on. Third is about understanding the data. So how is it structured, what is included, how is it formatted, and so on. Last one is the preparation part. And don't underestimate this one time-wise. It's about cleaning data sets in form of duplicates, bringing data into consistent formats, deleting faulty entries, and so on, so you can just further analyze. We won't talk about this one too much in this course, however, I have a separate guide you can look into. That's all the sub-steps in this stage. A lot of data analytics frameworks define those steps in individual stages. However, out of my experience, I believe they can be separated as well and often happen at the same time. For example, if you're sourcing the data by talking to someone to pull it for you, it just makes sense to talk to that person to help you understand it. Or if you prepare the data, you sometimes have to pull it from a tool already in the correct format. And after all, in order to determine the correct question, you have to have at least a general understanding of the data. In the last section, we talked about the business challenge and how to define smart key questions. In this section, we'll talk about solutions. However, not the actual answers to those questions, but rather core issues, reasons for what is happening, or just in general approaches on how to answer a particular key question. If you have ever heard of hypothesis testing, this is pretty much it. So let's say you have defined a possible reason for what you asked in key question 1. This is your first hypothesis. And it's now a lot less data you have to potentially look at and to analyze. The data source is then usually the easy part. Sometimes there are potentially several reasons for what you're asking. As such, you will have several hypotheses and together they are called a solution set. Obviously, you will have to do this for all your key questions. So let's have a look at an example to make it more understandable. Let's go back to our OrangeCo. So let's look at our first question here. Why has OrangeCo's marketing channel profitability decreased by 5% year-over-year? One reason for that decline could be one of their channels' ROI is decreased. So very simple, right? And how do we analyze if the ROI has decreased? Well, we check the corresponding ads data. So remember, OrangeCo advertise on Google and Facebook, so we'll just look there. Getting the data is now the easy part, as we can easily pull it directly from the accounts. Another core issue could be that the average order value decreased. So we'll analyze the customer transaction data pulled directly from our CRM. This is the solution set for our first question. And we can use the same method for our other questions. So for the second one, we'll do the same thing, and for the third one as well. For the second question, the reason could be as well that the average order value decreased. Or, alternatively, clients cancel subscriptions earlier. Both is analyzed with the transaction data from our CRM. The last question is a little bit different as it is a forecasting question. So instead of trying to find a core issue, we'll just define an approach here. In this case, we'll forecast based on our existing ROI from our advertising data. Alternatively, we could forecast based on budget development or absolute profit, for example. So how do we know when we have enough solutions in a set for a respective question? For this, we can use the Mies framework. Solutions should be mutually exclusive, so they don't overlap, but collectively exhaustive, so you theoretically have all possible solutions covered. However, in reality though, you don't have to find all possible solutions. Use the good old Pareto rule instead. Find the 20% of solutions which inflict 80% of the effects. For example, for our first question, why profitability is going down, of course the reason could also be that the general economy is going down, However, it probably won't make sense to do a complex macroeconomic analysis here. So use logic to weed out reasons.